What up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the My Player Career Mode here on FIFA 18. I'm sure you guys are intrigued by today's title, so without further ado, let's get into today's episode. I apologize as well, it's a little bit shorter than I would have liked it to have been. I could only play 3 games in today's episode because, as you know, I've had quite a jam-packed weekend, really. I went yesterday out to an event doing something else, and then today I've got a christening to go to. So, yeah, I'm not kind of been around as much as I would have liked to have done with my computer and stuff this weekend. So hopefully you guys understand that, but it's still a very good episode for you all to watch and enjoy today. We started it off with a game that Ben wasn't picked for. It was against Reading in the league, which luckily they did go on to win. Oh, wait, no, was it Reading in the league? It might be in the cup. I can't remember, but I know for sure Spurs ended up winning the game. From that one, we went into a game against Stoke City. Ben picked for it, who may add now is 89 rated. He is the joint highest top rating here at Spurs alongside Harry Kane, Eriksen. I'm not sure if Lloris is still 88 or 89 by now. We'll have to see. But certainly, he is having a great season here at Spurs. Now, this first game against Stoke comes at a time when Spurs really weren't focusing too much in terms of, I'd say, this performance right now. Because a few days after this, they have that, well, 5th North London derby of the season to come in leg 1 of the Europa League. So for now, it all kind of rests on, can Spurs keep the momentum going for the Premier League? Can they keep the momentum going in the Europa League? And then can they try and get to another final in the FA Cup? We do have a quarter-final game to come later on today in this episode in the FA Cup against Newcastle, so we'll see if they can make it through to a semi-final. But certainly speaking, Spurs have a great chance this season at winning more silverware than just the Carabao Cup. So we'll see if Ben can do it, we'll see if Spurs can do it, and of course this game against Stoke was going to be a tough test because Stoke's not an easy place to go. They play quite well at home to Stoke sometimes against the big teams, and Ben found that out as he found his first chance of the game. Nice ball roll past that defender there, but unfortunately couldn't quite squeeze his effort past the goalkeeper, and it was a decent stop in the first half. Now we move into the second. Ben picking up the ball there, showing some good strength to get past that defender, then turns inside that one so easily. A lot of space opened up because Harry Kane made a great run, but unfortunately Ben could only strike his effort off of the crossbar. You can see in the replay now, guys, how close he was to making the score 1-0 to Spurs. Unfortunately, he didn't quite do it. Came off the outside of the post, not the inside. If it had done, maybe it'd have gone in. And then into the 63rd minute now, as Spurs are trying to pile on the pressure, it was Harry Kane this chance now, and he found his way into the area. He even finds the back of the net, but unfortunately for Spurs, rightfully so, the linesman raises his flag and calls the offside, and you can see from the replay in a moment's time, he gets this decision spot on. Great refereeing, great linesman, I guess you could say as well, and you can see Harry Kane is offside when that ball was played to him. So, rightfully so, Stoke don't concede, and they end up picking a point from today's game, which I don't know how to feel about that, because I saw a couple of the Spurs players on the pitch at the time were celebrating that point. Now, if I was in that team, certainly speaking, I would be very frustrated they haven't come away with all 3 there. You can see Stoke had 0 shots. Stoke set up that team to try and keep Spurs out. So I suppose it's great management from the Stoke side. They probably realised that they weren't going to score against the best defensive record in the league. So the next best thing to do is to stop them scoring against you. So you get a point at least. And I suppose it worked out for Stoke. So out of that game, we move into now the 5th North London derby this season. 100% win rate for Spurs and Ben. And it's just crazy. It's crazy that we're having 6 North London derbies this season. I just don't know what to make of that. We pulled Arsenal in every single competition that Spurs possibly could have pulled them in, which is just ridiculous. It really, really is. So as we're going into the first leg of the double leg, I guess you can say, it's due course that Arsenal should win a game at some point against Spurs in the next couple of games, I guess you could say, because losing the first 4, you don't want to lose 5 out of 5 and then 6 out of 6. So for the Arsenal fans here, they're going to be right on the players' backs. And it's a semi-strong Arsenal team. There's a couple of players who are a bit weak in that side, but still going forward, they have the capability to score goals. And that's one thing that this Spurs defence is going to have to be on top form for. That is the team on the screen that Spurs, in fact, have got. So, for Arsenal's side, that was their team. Remember, Antunes had a really poor game against Spurs last time out. They've got 2 midfielders in El Neni and Coquelin. So I felt like the Spurs midfield should be able to overrun that one of Arsenal. And the player to watch went to Ben after his 6 assists in the Europa League this season. But the game was frustrating because you can see from this clip here, Arsenal really did keep the ball well. And you can see Ben, he's chasing down El Neni and Coquelin, and he just feels like he wasn't getting any help in order to try and put the pressure on these guys here. You can see he's getting frustrated as well, diving into tackles. He eventually decides he's going to give up on just chasing it until El Neni is forced backwards, and eventually he makes another foul there. So that's 2 in a row from Ben. So he was really getting frustrated because, I mean, I don't know what game plan it was from Spurs, whether or not they decided as a poor touch comes in, he wins that slide tackle, but doesn't even come away with the ball because somehow Arsenal still have it. So from that little clip, it just showed you Ben was getting frustrated. Spurs weren't really closing down very well. They weren't getting into tackles a little bit, and I think that was frustrating for Ben as well because, you know, North London derbies, you're supposed to be tackling hard, you're supposed to be going in for challenges, and it felt like Spurs kind of took a little bit off the gas, I guess you could say, and didn't really pile the pressure on when it came to closing down Arsenal. But it was Spurs with the first chance. Harry Kane there, sending his effort just over the top of the crossbar. El Neni now, as the second half begins, Lacazette picks up the ball here, and somehow Alderweireld has let that striker drop so deep to receive the ball, and when Ben realised that Lacazette had a lot of space in front of him to exploit, it was too late. He wasn't going to catch the French forward. Now, I don't know whether or not there's a few words exchanged here between the two of them, Wood and Alderweireld, but certainly speaking, I didn't like the way that Alderweireld backed off of Lacazette. You can see from the replay, if you watch it now, Alderweireld's so deep, and the man he's supposed to be marking's dropped very deep. Sometimes you can't do anything against that. But at the end of the day, then from that point on, close him down. He doesn't do that. Lacazette plays the pass in behind, and there is Alexis Sanchez to make the score 1-0 to Arsenal. So Ben, who'd had a frustrating first half because he couldn't get near the ball, and when he wanted his teammates to push up with him, they didn't seem to want to. Then he was frustrated because of the fact that Lacazette, unmarked, picks up the ball and picks out Sanchez in the middle to make the score 1-0. And then Ozil has an effort in the 90th minute, which could have quite easily made it 2-0. And that would have probably been Spurs out of the competition, you know, because away goals count, guys. And that's the one thing that I'm sure the Spurs fans didn't want, Arsenal scoring here at Wembley. So as the corner then came in from Alexis Sanchez, eventually it ends up getting cleared as it comes back to Antunes, and Antunes into Coquelin. Coquelin to a man in the middle, gives it away, and eventually finds its way through to Ben, and you're thinking, surely not. It's a 3-on-2 situation. Ben and Harry Kane, he feeds it to Harry Kane, whose first touch isn't fantastic, can't get it out of his feet, and he cuts back on that left-hand side and can't get a clear shot goalwards. So, disappointingly, I said it was about due course that Arsenal ended up winning a game, and that's exactly what's happened here. So Arsenal, to their credit, will take their first victory in the North London derby for the first time this season, because of course Spurs have 4 wins in the other ones. But arguably these are the important ones. You know, would you sacrifice a couple of the league wins in order to get through the Europa League? Maybe so. But for Ben, frustrating afternoon, couldn't get near the ball, was trying to put the pressure on and close down. And some of the Spurs boys were backing out of challenges they shouldn't have backed out of. So I'm sure that is going to have to be a situation that they cover in training, because you don't want to have the second leg happening exactly the same way as it did the first. So as we're moving into the next game, guys, you can see it's against Newcastle, as I said, in the quarter-final of the Cup. It's going to be the FA Cup this time, of course, as Spurs already hold the Carabao Cup, and it is going to be at Wembley again. So, yeah, another horrid performance. Hopefully it will be better than the other one a minute ago against Arsenal. Now, in terms of the FA Cup teams, I'm going to say this right now. I've looked at some of the teams that are left in this, and once again, I made my prediction in a previous video about the Carabao Cup, saying that Spurs are favourites to win it. I have to admit, I've looked at the teams in the FA Cup, and I think, again, Spurs are probably favourites to win this one. So, yeah, as long as everything goes correct, and as long as Spurs don't make mistakes, they should be able to pick up another trophy here. It doesn't work like that, though, of course, guys. It works on the day. There is no kind of guarantees in football, so you can't really say that. But the first chance of this game, again, came so late. Again, Spurs, not brilliant. Ben putting in his foot there to make a tackle. He had to play a bit deeper in this game, wasn't allowed the freedom to attack as much as he has been recently. So he made a great tackle there, and then it finds its way eventually on this left-hand side. So I think it was Lamela who eventually, out of all the people on the pitch, finds it to Sanchez, and he opens up the scoring in the 76th minute. Literally, that was the only chance. And I don't know whether or not that was Spurs being poor performances, or whether it's just like they've got one eye on that next leg against Arsenal, knowing full well that they need to win it now, or whether or not they're kind of hitting the stage where they're losing a bit of the gas, I guess you could say, and a bit of fuel in their tanks. Because remember, they've played almost, 40 games this season already, and we're still not even in the final of the FA Cup. We're not even in the final kind of 5 games of the league. We're still a long way to go in the season. So Spurs have to, like, kind of, I guess, try and preserve some energy, if you will, because otherwise they're going to run short in these competitions. And it's great to win the Carabao Cup, but that's not what the aim was this season, you know, for Ben. It was try and win as much as he possibly could and try and just basically make a name for himself. And that's what he's done so far. But for Spurs, being so close now, they don't want to drop it. And 87 minutes in, Ben picks up the ball. Poor first touch there, but one tackle, and all of a sudden, it looked like Newcastle were in to make it 1-1. But thankfully, the post there came in clutch for Spurs. Otherwise, that would have certainly been 1-1. No idea where the defenders went to. They kind of went on walkabouts, and otherwise it could have quite easily been a replay this one. But thankfully not. Pochettino goes and shakes the hand of his rival manager, and Spurs will advance through to the semi-final of the FA Cup. But of course, guys, it's overshadowed by that 1-0 defeat earlier on in the Europa League. So next episode, there is all to do in that second leg. I hope that Ben can get his gears going and try and carry Spurs in that second leg. And hopefully speaking, I don't know, because it's weird, because having played the first 4 North London derbies before that one, winning all 4, you would kind of expect that on form-wise, Spurs might do the same thing there. But I suppose time has to come that Arsenal will win a game. Hopefully they don't win both of them. That's all I'm going to say. So 1-0 deficit to take into the next leg. Can Spurs turn it around? Of course, let's find out in the next episode. You can see, in terms of the semi-final draw for that FA Cup, I'm about to show you the team now. And that is, of course, confirmation that Spurs won the Carabao Cup, which you already knew. But that is the draw now for the FA Cup. Spurs will take on Burnley after they had knocked out Manchester United, and West Ham against Swansea. But all of a sudden, one of the amateur news football pages released this. Breaking: training ground bust-up between Wood and Alderweireld. The centre-back tackled Wood hard in training, to which Wood sarcastically asked, where were the tackles like that in the last North London derby, the one they lost 1-0? Both players then squared up to one another, had to be separated by teammates. No response from Spurs as of yet, but this happening a few days ahead of that important game against Arsenal is not good news for Spurs indeed. I don't know what kind of went on in training. It must have just been a hard tackle, to which Wood, of course, he has a bit of a sarcastic streak about him, would have, I guess, said a little snarky comment. But after that, Ben received this email from the Spurs board saying the incident that occurred at training this morning is not something we take lightly here at Spurs. We value good teamwork, good relationships within the squad. We will be reviewing the incident and making a decision regarding a punishment in the coming days. Expect to hear from us again soon, the Spurs board. So what is going to happen to Ben? What's his punishment going to be? Will he be picked for that second leg against Arsenal? Of course, we'll see what happens regarding this situation here at Spurs within the next episode. But if you've enjoyed this one, guys, a like, rate, we greatly appreciate it. As always, thank you for your continued support on the channel. I really do appreciate it. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for everything you guys do for me and the channel. I will see you all again at 4 p.m. UK time tomorrow for yet another video, guys. If you haven't already, hit that bell. Never miss an upload. I'll catch you all tomorrow. Adios.